You're now tuned into the BeOfficial Movement.
Check this out. Join the BeOfficial Movement.
Join the BeOfficial Movement.
All right. So it's me, Vernon, back again. You're watching or listening to the BeOfficial Movement. Again, I'm here with my special guest, Matt Bullinger, assistant coach for Kalamazoo Community College.
Kalamazoo Valley Community College, yes, sir.
Yep, KVCC.
You got to throw the Valley in there because people get
right.
confused with the actual orange and black K College, but there's a lot of schools in Kalamazoo. So
True. All right, and you're tuned in to 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo. Here with that BeOfficial Movement, Matt. Right before we went off air, we was having a great conversation about, just the movement itself, the class you're teaching, and some of your coaching experience. Let's pick back up off the coaching experience and kind of continue that conversation where we left off.
Where we kind of left off was we were just talking about, I think I kind of said something that surprised you about how sometimes we know we're wrong and we'll still yell at you anyway, yell at the officials anyway.
That's what it was.
Yes.
You said
it's totally true, man. I hate to admit it, and it's probably throwing some coaches under the bus who wouldn't want me to admit it, but it's super true.
Nah, we know that y'all do that because it's plain as day. The call that or call or no call, we see that nothing happened, and y'all just kind of yapping in our ear just to make some noise. Sometimes that's where you left off. You were saying sometimes you yell at the ref, and just so the players will see your energy. That's not right. Don't be doing that.
It might
not
be right, but you got to understand a coach will always throw a referee under the bus before he'll throw himself or his team under the bus.
That's that loyalty.
And that's kind of what creates the working relationship there. Why maybe you might not have any true best friends being referees and officials, just good friends.
Sure.
But no, it's. I remember there's a story once. I was listening to somebody somewhere talking about a story with John Thompson, old coach at Georgetown, how he went off on an official one day, and then he went from the official and he starts yelling at the opposing coach. It was Rick Pitino at the time. He's going off, cussing and everything.
Wow.
And the game ends up and his team loses in a game they should have won. They were the favored team.
He caused all that commotion.
So he caused all this commotion, and he's in the handshake line after the game, and he shakes Rick Pitino's hand, and he pulls him close, and he's like, hey, all that was for show. Like, my guys just didn't have it today. I was trying to bring him some energy. So he's like, it's kind of like that. Like, it's sometimes there's a couple things that could go into it, right? Like, if your team shows up and it's just dead, like it's just one of those dead days. Maybe they all didn't get a good night's sleep. You had a bad travel day or something.
Man, them travel days. Jackson College was
yes.
We done had some bad travel days.
The little vans.
The little 15 passengers with 12, 6, 2 and up players.
Yes. So just days like that.
It's bad.
You'll show up to the game and you might not have a lot of energy, and sometimes it's your coach's job to get everybody fired up. And if he didn't do it in the locker room, or they just didn't bring it on the court, it's kind of that common enemy thing. So if you're gonna go, if you see your coach getting real mad at the official, you have a real bond with your coach. You don't really have a real bond with the official because it's the official's job to keep it professional, right?
Right.
So you're gonna stand behind your coach, and maybe that gets you going for the game. So that's always one of those that's a little iffy too. And then sometimes it happens. You see it a lot more happen with like a team's best player, a team's primary ball handler, scorer. Sometimes he'll get maybe a charge call against him or her, or they'll get they'll just be getting ticky-tack fouls or something like that they don't really agree with. The coach will just do that to keep their players' confidence high, even if they're like, hey, at the end of the day, okay, he was fouled, he was hand checking, but if we're gonna win this game, he's got to get us 20, and he's got 5 right now. So I got to keep him going to get us there, or we don't stand a whole chance. I would rather get on this official, and it comes to a point sometimes, even myself included, where it's like, it's hard to yell at somebody when you know you're wrong. But in the back of your head, if you're doing it for one of your players, it makes it a little easier.
I feel that. Okay. All right. Thanks for elaborating on that.
Well, I just feel like, as an
that.
official, sometimes that's one of those you see behind the curtain things where it's,
Yeah.
I've gone after a game and was talking to one of my head coach, and I was like, oh man, like I didn't really see that call, but you made it sound like it was bad. He goes, oh no, that was a fine call. I just, you just got to do it sometimes. So it's nothing personal against the referee, and sometimes the coaches do take it too far, myself included. But no, at the end of the day, it's nothing personal like that.
I feel that you got to get the troops rallied and get everybody hype, and your star player on the team definitely does have to eat, no matter what sport you're playing, whether it be basketball or soccer. Like if the star or the go-to person isn't being the go-to that night, and that's because of like ticky-tack fouls. I've watched games or been a part of games where I'm on the official side and myself or one of my partners hits the go-to person with a foul that personally I may or may not have agree with. Like those 50-50 calls where it's like it was an offensive foul by the book, but at the same time it didn't knock the defensive like completely out of his position. And that goes to what we talked about a little bit before in our last conversation of like with basketball is one of the hardest sports to officiate because there's so much gray.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So sometimes that star player does get some ticky-tacks, but in terms of as long as it's consistent throughout the whole team, I get like coaches, they ain't got much to say as long as it's hitting like the whole court. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like if the call play or if the plays are being called a certain way amongst the whole game, then that eases it up a little bit. But
I will say that's a noticeable thing too. If you're gonna call it one way on this court, that'll get your coaches to kind of calm down too.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I'm sure that you don't think about because you're not supposed to be thinking about it is like you'll call whatever foul you call a foul. You're not really thinking about it, but I'm gonna be a lot more critical of your call if you're giving my guy his second foul early in the first half, or if it's his fourth foul of the game, or if you're fouling him out on stuff like that. But like you're not paying attention to that. You're calling fouls on whoever you see fouls on. But for me, I'm like, oh my God, you're gonna foul my guy out of the game on that, and you know what I mean. So the referees aren't expected to think about that, and I don't think you should be thinking about that.
We shouldn't, because otherwise, if referees do take that into consideration, then now we're being biased.
Exactly.
It's like, all right, so that's number one is their go-to. We're not gonna call more than 2 fouls on him for the first half. That's not right.
Yeah, no, that's
you know what I'm saying. Yeah, exactly. Especially if he or she is fouling, then they fouling. Yeah, take it, coach, take him to the sideline and talk to him. You know what I'm saying.
Coaches know when we have a hack on the team too, man. Because not only do we probably see it in the game, we've probably seen it in practice all week too, man. This dude is hacking all the time. He can't get his hands off, or he thinks he's there, but man, you're a half step late. Like, so we know it too. But it's just sometimes you think about that. If you notice. You might notice you call a foul on a guy and immediately a guy's coming in to sub for him. You're like, oh, maybe that was his second or something. I called on him, and you see the coach getting on you. You could be like, all right, that's not all on me. That's him taking his anger out. Because we got to take our anger out somewhere sometimes, and it could be real detrimental if we're in the middle of a game to take it out on a player. You know what I mean?
Y'all got to be careful.
So you got to just take it, I guess. Either that or hit us with the T.
Y'all need to be careful with y'all anger. Control your own emotions. Because you mess around. Like in the example you gave a minute ago, the dude could have won the game, but he caused so much of a show. He took him and his team out the game and lost.
Yes.
So it's like, all right, I understand you got, all this stuff going through you in the heat of the moment, but just like you sit there and tell your players on a court who got like a Draymond, you got to control that, channel that Draymond, come on now, and use it for good on the court. Coaches got to learn to do the exact same thing they preaching, practice what you preach.
Yes.
So channel your energy in a way that like feeds energy into your team, but doesn't put your team at a disadvantage by delaying the game, getting technical fouls.
Have you ever? I gotta ask you this though. Have you ever had a coach kind of get on you and like ask you to give him a technical? Because I've seen coaches do that before. Maybe not. Maybe they didn't plan it ahead of time or whatever. But just in the flow of the game, maybe the momentum's going the other way.
Yeah.
They'll get a technical and just kind of slow the game down for a second. Like we'll just because those
That
free throws
sounds
take
like-
a minute. The technical takes a minute to call and get everything processed through. Then you got to sit there and watch a couple free throws. Then we're resetting it from out of bounds. I'm just talking basketball right now.
Yeah.
It can kind of, if the other team's got a bunch of momentum, I get a technical, I'll give you 2 points, but it's going to stop your whole momentum. So I just wonder, have you ever had a coach kind of
That's
let
a
you
good
in on
question.
his strategy like that at all?
No, I haven't had a coach specifically ask me like, give me a technical, like, or try to challenge me to give him a technical. But I have had coaches, try to pull a card and just to see how I would react. Just
they're gonna see where your line is.
Yeah. So like, perfect example would be like the first varsity basketball game I ever did. It was like a rivalry game. They weren't like, top tier teams, but it was still a rivalry. It wasn't like
but it's an important game to the two.
Yeah,
teams.
it was an important game to the two teams. It wasn't like the best of the best competition rivalry. Like that's a whole another stage.
Yeah.
But it was an important game to both of these two teams, and my team, varsity you do 3-man for basketball.
Yep.
So my two other officials I was paired with kind of gave me the 4-1 on. One of the coaches is like, all right, well, you're new. This coach hasn't seen you on this court before, so he's probably going to try to pull your card or challenge you in a way or two because he normally gets a little rowdy even with us, and we've been refereeing his games for 10, 15 years, so he's still been. That's just how he is.
Some guys are just like.
So some guys just do that, and so I'm like thankful to them. So that goes behind the scenes with like. You got support as a referee, like when you're with your team, like you got your 2-man or your 3-man, like all y'all are one little team together.
Yes.
So y'all gotta have each other's back like that. And I think some people may not really understand that. But to go back and answer your question, like I think it was a charge. It was a charge call.
It was one of those hard charges.
It was one of those hard charges,
yeah.
bro. It was a fast break, and dude, it was like 1-on-1. And the dude got in position, and the other dude still just kept running like freight train.
Yeah.
So it was an obvious charge call, but I guess because I was still running back. I wasn't like standing.
You were ahead of it or behind it?
I was like on pace with it.
Okay.
I was on pace with it. So I wasn't in the lead position fully. I was still trying to get there, but I was like right on parallel with it. So I could see it good from my angle, but not being in the exact position I probably was supposed to be in, he tried to challenge me on that. Like, oh, how could you see that? That wasn't a charge, blah, 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 blah. And he did the same thing which it was an obvious charge. Like, it was a good call, and everybody else agreed with me. And then there was a late game foul, an intentional foul that easily could have got overlooked because I was the trail at this time. And it happened on a sideline, and the center wasn't looking, and the lead's not supposed to be looking at that. And it was like a nudge, so I called an offensive foul on that too, just because that's what it was. But it was on the opposing team, so it was like back to back.
But
if that makes sense.
If it's consistent like that,
Yeah.
if that's what you're saying, then that's and try to pull your card like that too. Like there's people even so like I'm pretty young, right? I mean, I told you I recognize some of these refs from when I was actually playing, but I work for a coach who's been around for a little while, so he knows some of these guys. They've been reffing his games for a while, and you could tell he'll talk to them a little differently than he talks to new guys in the league.
Yep.
You know what I mean, like the conference or whatever.
Because they probably got that relationship.
Yes, he's got the relationship, and there's just a respect factor that you can only really gain with time. Like there's no way to come in and get it right off the jump. It's just guys that he's seen around for enough time that he knows, okay, you're not coming in here with a personal agenda. You're not coming in here like working, still like trying to improve your craft. Like you know what you're doing already.
Right. You can definitely see a clear difference in that. So like when I was first starting reffing, like doing my freshman JV games, as the games went on, you could see like, all right, he's still trying to work on his little craft. But with the veteran ref that I was working with, he had been doing it for however many years.
You could tell some guys have like their own style too, how they report their fouls, how they call it. Certain guys will I always like as a player, I always could talk a ton on the court. A little bit of trash talk, but mostly just I could talk through the whole game with everybody. And so I always liked a referee that would kind of talk to you. You know, the guy where you're battling in the post, he'll take his whistle out of his mouth and say, hey, you know, watch it, or hands off. He kind of give you a little warning before he calls anything serious. I always like referees like that. You could tell those guys have been around for a while if they're doing stuff like that too.
I learned all my stuff from those type of guys. So like when I'm reffing and I'm down in that front position, in that lead spot, and I'm watching that post play, I'm trying to talk to them the whole time, like hands off, just because there's no need to stop the flow of the game with a foul that could have been avoided if.
I love to hear that too. As a coach, I love to hear that you want to keep the flow of the game going, because that's all we want to. We don't want a choppy game, getting it called. I mean, if stuff's getting out of hand, if stuff's starting to get a little ticky tacky like that, where you can't let stuff get out of hand, then bad things happen. But yeah, I'm glad to hear that you said that you want to keep the flow of the game going, because that's what we want to.
And it's for like a couple of reasons. We want to keep the flow of the game for a couple of reasons. One, y'all came to play. You didn't come to just sit here and stop. Y'all didn't come to shoot free throws.
I just come to shoot free throws. Yep.
Yeah, y'all didn't come for that. Second, the fans, they came to watch a game. They didn't come to see like a choppy ticky-tack foul game. And third, I ain't trying to be there all night.
I'm trying to get out of here.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm here. I'm gonna be here. I'm gonna be present in the moment for the whole game. But at the same time,
I'm sure you gotta drive home too.
Yeah, I gotta. Especially sometimes, some of us, like, we travel hour and a half
sometimes
or more.
Your travel be longer than the away teams travel too. Like,
yes, especially because of the shortage that we got. It's like we just traveling all over the place, and ain't nobody paying for our gas or none of that. Like, I know referees that basically they made maybe a $10 profit from the game that they did after they take out the gas that they paid for. It's like, it's really not even worth their time to go do nothing like that. Like, you about to go ref a varsity game and make $85, but you drove an hour to it. You spent $40 on gas to get there and back. All right, now you really only did a game for $40.
Yeah, and it's a lot of hours that you spent, drive there, drive back, plus the whole. That's a lot of hours from 40. You break it down like that, you're not making a bunch an hour. You know? Yeah,
but if it's the case where it's like, I'm coming to do your game at KVCC, and I'm coming from Western's campus.
Easy, yeah.
I might make $100 on that game just because it's a higher level, but I only drove 15 minutes. So that's completely worth my time, because that would be
like best case scenario.
That is like best case scenario. I can make $100 reffing a game for an hour and a half, and only have a 30-minute commute there and back. Dude, come on, sign me up every week. I'm there. I got all your games. So if you need one, let me know.
Always come ref my games. I know you well enough.
I'm down. All right, I'm down. All right, man. Well, let's end it on that note. Next, I'm going to bring in another special guest with you. His name is Manny Wilson. Manny Wilson. He runs the Run podcast, and he also does a show here on 89.1 WIDR. And I'm going to talk to both of them about just to kind of continue the conversation me and Matt was having, and then we're going to bring in some Imani Bates scenarios and talk about high school and college basketball. So, cool.
Yes, sir.
All right.
You're now tuned into the BeOfficial Movement.
Check this out. Join the BeOfficial Movement.
Join the BeOfficial Movement.